Hello there, Kansas City. Stephen St. John here with a new episode of Hot Mic with SSJ. As you know, the morning show is now called New Day with SSJ. It's going to be a whole SSJ franchise, being the attention whore that I am. And if you'd like to advertise on anything that I'm involved with, just contact me, Stephen St. John at 810WHB.com, because I've learned that my sales department can't be trusted. So Stephen St. John at 810WHB.com. As you can see here, I got nothing. I got a drink, got my phone over here. People keep fucking texting me, and I don't want to be contacted right now, but apparently that doesn't matter to other people. But Jake is with me. Jake Gutierrez, producer of New Day with SSJ, and he's got a legal pad with him. Because apparently he has a prepared statement. And so, in a purple bottle and I'm just going to be honest, what appears to be either a dildo or vibrator case, which I'm hoping it's neither. Or maybe I'm hoping it's both. I don't know. What is it?
Sunglasses.
Okay.
Glasses.
It's a weird glasses case, I can tell you that. Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and tell you that originally that was not meant for glasses. Okay? Someone's lying to you, all right?
Raw. Optics. If you like to advertise.
Raw, exactly.
No lube.
Again, someone lied to you.
No lube.
All right, so this is like a crossover episode. This is like when Happy Days would visit Laverne and Shirley. Or maybe if you think, it wasn't a crossover when Mork was first on Happy Days. What other crossover episodes were there? That were good.
Melrose Place and 90210. Didn't they have a crossover?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I can't remember. This isn't the crossover, but maybe this is just like when.
It's a genesis of a spinoff.
All right. So your podcast a spinoff of Hot Mic with SSJ?
Absolutely, it has to be.
Okay.
I mean that's what it is. Like I was promoted on your podcast,
okay.
Hot Mic, and then you had me on many episodes.
So I'm the
spinoff.
I'm Breaking Bad, and you're Better Call Saul.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's great. I think that's great.
That feels good now.
Yeah.
All right.
It's a spinoff. What we're going to talk about today.
All right. No, I'm in on this. That sounds good. All right. So, and again, for people that don't know, we rebranded the show because Nate decided he was too good for everyone else, and he's finally chasing that MLS money on the East Coast, and he'll be part-time on New Day with SSJ. But Jake and I will be the constants on the show. We're going to have a whole bunch of co-hosts.
He told you?
I don't fucking know.
He told me he had HIV.
What is wrong with what the fuck is wrong with you? Hey, you do that shit on your podcast. Don't fucking say that on my podcast.
That's what he told me.
What is wrong with you? What is wrong with you?
Magic's good, so Nate'll be good. Sorry to interrupt.
Such a weird turn. Magic is good,
Yeah, he's great.
We're not talking about that.
No,
on the
talking
show,
about
please.
It's a new day.
New Day with SSJ, and so that's the new morning show, Mondays through Fridays on Sports Radio 810 WHB from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about
everything.
Are we?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to get your thoughts on the first couple days of New Day. What's it been like?
Fucking want to talk about that. Here, somebody asked. Okay, you want to get me going? Someone fucking asked me the other day. Do you ever get tired of having to be Stephen St. John? I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? And he meant like to be on, like when you're in an event or something like that. You introduce yourself, you go out of your way to. And I said, I don't get tired of that. I like when people recognize me because that means that they listen to the show. And so I'm real big on eye contact, shaking someone's hand, asking their name, so I can engage with them, and I can make them feel like I really am, and I really am like I'm grateful that they listen to the show, because I am. I met a couple of radio guys when I was a kid. They were fucking assholes, and then I didn't want to listen to their show anymore, right? It just what happened, I went to a couple of radio remotes, and they're just fucking dicks. It's like, well, fuck, I'm not going to listen to you anymore.
I remember one of the first radio guys I ever met was very cool to me, and it's one of the reasons I was like, I want to go into radio.
Oh yeah.
His name was Fast Eddie from Q104.
Oh, I remember. Yeah, I met him a couple times. He was cool.
He was really cool. He
Where
used to be on with Randy Miller in the morning on Q104.
So did I. 97.3 in this fucking studio.
I met him at Young's Pool. I was maybe 9 or 10. I used to call into Q104 all the time. All the time I'd call into Q104 and try to win. They'd be like, Hot 9 at 9.
Where did I used to see Fast Eddie? Was it at the UMKC games? You're right. He was always very nice.
Awesome
Which reminds
guy.
me, I don't know what made me think of this. Do you fucking remember the clearance update? When the guy would, it was like,
Yes.
they talk about the soap operas and he'd.
Yes.
What the fuck ever happened to the? I'd like to have the clearance update on my show. Is he alive?
Days of our lives.
Yeah, right.
Another world.
And he'd impersonate the fucking. I used to love that shit. Whatever. I don't know why. I don't know why that just popped in my head. Whatever happened to the clearance update? I'd like to fucking hear that. Book him on the fucking show if he's alive.
Hey, this is what this pad's
great.
for. Here.
Make him do it. I tell him we're in the market for it.
We already had one person offer to do some entertainment.
I saw that. Tell him okay.
Okay.
I'm in.
All right.
Okay, so this is let me show you what I was gonna fucking tell you. So anyone know the guy was asking me, and I said I don't. But you know what I do get, and we had this conversation about it. You know what I do get tired of, and this is gonna sound bad. This is what bothers me, and it doesn't really bother me. It's like it's more of an annoyance, but who cares? I fucking
You're human.
there are worse things in the world, right? Is when someone will come up and say, "Hey, I know you probably don't want to talk about this because you all you do is talk about sports," but then goes on and fucking asks me about sports.
Right into sports.
And let me tell you something. Unless I'm watching a game or something, I don't want to fucking talk about sports like at 7:30 at the fucking pizza place or if you see me at Hy-Vee. I don't want to.
He'd rather you ask him about Sopranos.
Like, I'd be fine. Or
Right.
you know what? I will. When people ask me about boxing, I do get fired up because I like that.
Yeah.
But I don't want to. Ask me about my family. Ask me about anything else. But it's always the fucking guy that qualifies with.
Yeah.
I'm sure you get sick of this. You probably don't want to talk about this.
But I'm gonna do it anyways.
I'm like, stop right there. You're right. You just hit the nail on the head. That's right. I don't want to talk about this, but something tells me
You're gonna
fucking ask me about this, and I'm gonna find myself talking about this.
Hey.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then,
it happens.
whatever. That's
Right.
fine.
But it's also, I mean, like, you're gracious about it.
I do talk about it, but
Sure.
I just thought, he was asking, but that's the only thing. And it doesn't always bother me. But like, if I'm in the frozen food section with my daughters and we're trying to figure out, and whatever, and it's like, no, I don't want to fucking talk about Harrison Butker. First of all, I don't want to talk about Harrison Butker at all unless it's the kick that he just made to win the game.
That's a good
I'm
reason.
fucking done with that. Okay? And people go, what about your daughters? I go, what about my daughters? I raised my daughters, not Harrison Butker. Okay? That I'm responsible for the lessons that my daughters learn, not a fucking athlete or not anyone on TV or not anyone singing a song. Here's what I'll say about this. The only thing I'll say about it, I don't know how we got on this topic. I didn't want to talk about it, but now I need to get this off my chest, and I'm not doing it on the radio. I'll do it here.
Okay.
I have twin daughters, 15 years old. They are forces of nature. They are, I love them, and they both scare me to death. They are 15 going on 30. But this is what I tell them. If you want to never get married, never have kids, and pursue a career in anything, and do and devote your life to becoming successful in a field, whatever you want to do, I'm gonna fucking support you 110% with all my heart. If you want to get married and have a bunch of kids and stay at home and raise those kids, I'm going to fucking support you 110% with all my heart. If you want to be a professional and get married and have kids, I'm going to support you 110% with all my heart. I will babysit for you. I will pick those kids up. I will spoil them. I will let them get away with bloody murder and then send them home to you for you to clean up the mess, I will be there for you for whatever you do. Whatever you want to do. If you never want to get married and you never want to have kids, I will love you more than I could ever love anyone in the world. If you want to, my mom stayed at home and raised me, and she put in work. Because let me tell you something, I was a fucking handful, and I needed her, and she worked her ass off. And if anyone tells me what she didn't have value, then fuck you, because she did. She was fantastic. My wife worked full time when I first met her, and she worked. Who is outside there pointing at us right now?
You're going. You're rolling.
What is happening right
rolling. now? You're on a roll.
If you let this man come in here, I will choke him with this cord.
Just keep rolling.
Okay. Anyway,
right? Yeah.
Would you kind of like to see it happen?
Come on in here.
Yeah, exactly. No. So, fuck. If people could just be here. And so, and that's what my mom chose to do. That's what she wanted to do. And then when I got old enough to where she realized I wasn't a total fuck up, she went back to work and worked at Boatman's Bank in remittance processing. But the problem is she worked overnight, which means there was no parents at my house overnight from the time I was 16 on, which means, guess what? Party house. So that was Mama in heaven, bad decision. But I supported your decision to go back to work.
Made you who you were.
Right. Susan, when I met her, she had a great job. She worked very hard, and she raised our boys. And my mom was alive, and my mom helped raise them, right? And she was a living babysitter. It was awesome. My mom passed away. We sat down and decided that it would be best that if she left work and then devoted her life to raising our kids. And guess what? She's a badass woman. She was a badass woman when she worked. She was a badass woman when she raised our kids. And now she's back at work, and she's a badass woman still. My point is, it's not for me to decide. It's not for you to decide. It's for the individual to decide. And I've told my daughters, whatever you want to do, there is no wrong answer. As long as you're not hurting somebody. Like if they say, Dad, I want to go fucking rob banks and share a cell with Cheesaholic. No, I'm not fucking supporting that.
Bad idea.
Although,
Bad idea.
If it's a certain point in my life, I might drive the getaway car. I don't know. Let's talk about how we're going to split the money. Just kidding. My point is, whatever they want to do. Only thing that bothers me was when it felt like some people were talking down about women that chose to raise their kids and be a homemaker. There's nothing wrong with that. And it takes a tremendous amount of strength and intelligence. And let me tell you, my wife works harder than I do when she's raising these kids and especially getting these girls ready for school. Because I've been there when I'm on vacation, and guess what? I'm ready to go back to work quick because they are hell on wheels. My wife works her ass off. And so there's nothing wrong with being a homemaker. There's nothing wrong with being a mother and a wife. And there's also nothing wrong with deciding, you know what, maybe I don't want to be a mother. Mm-hmm. I just want to pursue my career and you know what, become a scientist or save the world or do whatever, be a professional athlete, whatever it is. I want to get married. I don't want to get married. Whatever my daughters want to do, they will have my undying support, 100% and 10%. And that's all I can say about it. That's all, because you don't have to pick sides. All I want my daughters to know is whatever you decide to do, Dad's got your back. And I'll support you the best way I can and the best way I know how, and that's with love. And that's it.
Bingo. So, you said it, love. Like I heard there's a man named Tim Ferriss, and he was on a podcast called Rich Roll. And he was talking about, advice to parents, right? And he said the best advice that he'd ever gotten was, it's as a parent, because I'm not a parent. So what do I tell my kids? I don't tell them shit because I don't have any right now. But, one day, maybe, who knows? I have nieces and nephews.
Please.
I have nieces and nephews.
Please, baby Jesus, if you're up there.
It's not out of the question.
Make him a daddy.
Not out of the question.
Won't you?
But
if I can help in any way, which sounds weird, I mean, not like physically helping in any way, no, but you know, please, that's all.
You just want to be a godfather.
Hey, I'm just gonna tell you something. When I pray for something I really want, I ask baby Jesus, and I am asking baby Jesus. Direct line to baby Jesus, please.
Well, as a parent, your job is not for your kids to like you, right? Your job,
good.
Your job is to love those kids,
Yeah.
right? And it's not for them. Whether they like you or not is irrelevant. But your job is to love those kids.
Both of my daughters were so fucking mad at me yesterday in two different situations, and at one point, I fucking got up and declared, you know, I'm tired of everyone talking shit to me. I'm going to bed, and I'm not talking to anyone for the rest of the night. And it evened out because they were mad for might have been good reasons, might not. Well, but sometimes I feel that.
Guess what? It's not your job.
Yeah, right.
It's not your job for them to like you, but it's your job to love them. And so I think, and that's what you said. All you probably request is if you put your energy into something, make sure you do it with all your heart.
Yeah.
You know, make sure you give it all your effort. I know that I only say that because that's what was told to me. You know, my mom, it was so vital for her sons to grow up with a Catholic education that my parents got divorced. And you can hear all about that story right now on the Just Jake podcast. I went into it. My first two guests were my two brothers, and we went into our childhood. And so my parents were divorced, and then they got remarried to each other. But they got divorced when I was in second grade. And it was so important for my mom to raise us Catholic in a Catholic school that she was the overnight janitor. She would go into our school and vacuum the schools and clean the bathrooms just so she could get tuition money off our tuition. That's how important it was to her, not only to work as a paralegal during the day, but 3 times a week, go into our school and clean the school. And that, like, what, like, I can't really, like, that is a woman who loves her kids.
Right.
Right. And so it's like, you know, she was a great mother. She was a stay-at-home mom until my parents got divorced, till I was in second grade. And then she had to go to work because my parents divorced, and she, you know, she had to provide for us. My dad provided for us, but they weren't in the same house living together at the time. But guess what? My mom was the biggest badass I've ever met.
Right.
You know, and she worked, and she was a mother. And, you know, and she was a grandmother, and, you know, she was a sister, she was a daughter, and all those things she was the best at. So, you know, I don't have anything other than that to say is, you know, you're in charge of your kids. And if being, I think being a parent is probably the most vital thing that anybody can do in their life in terms of this society and where it's going, you know, because there's a lot of kids that grow up with bad parents. There's a lot of kids that grow up with no parents, you know, and that's not for me to judge or hold any kind of thoughts about. All I see is that, you know, people, if you have children, you need to show up for those kids to the best of your ability.
I need all my focus on raising my family. I'm not here to judge anyone else. I just fucking worry about what I do and what me and my wife try to do, because we are flawed parents, but it's not for lack of trying. And like one time, you know, Richie and I had this conversation about how hard I was on him as a kid and how much of a disciplinarian I was. And he said, you know, but looking back at it, you know, you always had to be there to be such a hard-ass disciplinarian. Mm-hmm. You were always there. Right. And he said he's got a lot of friends that didn't have that because their dad wasn't there. And that made me feel better about how fucking hard and strict I was and am even with my girls now. But the point, and you were talking about your mom cleaning the schools. My mom, one of the jobs that she took after my dad, because my mom and dad split up, like when I was in 6th or 7th grade, around there. I don't fucking know. It's kind of blurry. Try to put that shit out of my mind. But they didn't officially get a divorce until he went away to jail, like senior year. So like in between was fucking terrible. Mm. And he had another family with, you know, and she was heartbroken. And that's one of the reasons why I've had surgery on one shoulder, and this one I have a torn rotator cuff, because they fucking each had an arm and fucking yanked at me back and forth and had me in the middle and used me. You know, I was a fucking weapon of mass destruction, you know. Oh yeah, well then then your son's not gonna see you. Your son said fuck you, and you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I was a fucking ping pong ball.
That's
right?
traumatic.
Oh yeah, it sure was, and I never, ever, ever, ever want to put my kids through that. But the important thing, again, that's what I was saying. My mom, one of the jobs she had to take on, she used to go and clean and do the laundry at the Carriage Club. And and since then I've gone to do a couple of speaking engagements there, and I would think, I'd look up and think, this is a little different situation now. I'm invited here and people want me to be here and I'm going to talk to these people or whatever else. I'm here at an event, and my mom used to clean here and my mom used to wash the towels here. My mom did whatever was necessary to help put me through St. Pius and then help put me through school. And now it's really cool. Now Susan at St. Pius works in the lunchroom 3 days a week and works her ass off. Because I thought it would be cool to go volunteer, because not a lot of dads volunteer at the lunchroom. They had me serving hot-ass raviolis, and these kids were, I want a double order. I'm like, trying to pass these things out. I'm fucking up, and I'm looking around. I was, maybe they got 11, maybe they got 13. I'm just throwing raviolis and things. Am I doing all right? I'm sweating. I'm thinking, okay, got to do that. Well, that's just the first lunch period. You got two more, like,
right.
And so I was, and she was like, yeah,
take that,
yeah, motherfucker. Now you see why I'm so tired, and I get it,
On your feet too.
Works her ass off there, works her ass off at home. She has to deal with me, all that stuff. Point is, I just want to get that off my chest.
Sure.
It's my girl's decision, and it's my job, whatever they decide to do, to support them. They are tremendous athletes. We're at basketball practice. We're at track and field. We're doing all these things all the time. And anytime I think about even complaining a little bit, I think, man, this is going to be over so quick. And there's going to be a time when I wish I could take my daughters to practice, or I wish I could go to this game or whatever else, because I miss that with my boys right now. And so I will support them, whatever they want to do, and that's it. So I'm done talking about that.
Yeah, I think that's well said.
So now I want to talk about one other thing before we get into your podcast.
Yeah.
You asked me what I'm excited about. I didn't mention this on the show today, and let me find my fucking tweet about it. And yes, I still call it Twitter. I don't care if it's X.
It's Twitter.
Elon Musk.
He's an alien, man.
Fucking Netflix. And I already knew about this, but I've heard enough rumors about shit happening to where, like, oh, they're gonna do a Sopranos spinoff, and then it never fucking happens, and I get my fucking hopes up. Netflix tweeted this out yesterday. Tommy Shelby returns. A Peaky Blinders film starring Cillian Murphy is coming to Netflix.
Oh, boy.
It seems like Tommy Shelby wasn't finished with me. It is very gratifying to be re-collaborating with Stephen Knight and Tom Harper on the film version of Peaky Blinders. This one is for the fans. And that's a quote from Cillian Murphy, and they tweeted out a picture of the fucking script. Let me tell you something. I just got goosebumps again. I love Peaky Blinders so much, and they're going to have a movie, and it's going to be great. It's the same people, and I was afraid, like, he just won an Academy Award.
Yeah. For Oppenheimer.
For Best Actor. I'm thinking, he ain't fucking making this Peaky Blinders movie now. Right? Because it's like, fuck, there it is, windows closed. And I said, oh, now what they're going to do is, if they try to bring back a movie and they say somehow off screen, Tommy Shelby got killed, but I'm like, fuck this, I'm not doing that.
Right, try to do this series without him.
Don't do this shit, because I knew the movie's coming. But now to have Cillian Murphy say Tommy Shelby, and that's the character he plays, wasn't done with me, and guess who's in the movie? Tom motherfucking Hardy. Let's fucking go.
I got to catch up.
Let's go.
I got to catch up before that comes out.
Best baker of all time, Tom Hardy, in that fucking script.
He's
in
the
that
best.
fucking in that series. So that's all I want to get. And then I told you my daughters are mad.
Yeah.
I got accused by Julia, and maybe it's true, maybe it's not. And so if she's listening, I'm sorry for the language, ma'am.
She shouldn't be.
Well, maybe she is. Should. I don't know.
I was listening to the album. Good fucking luck. You're on your own.
I've been accused of playing the new Eminem song too much. And they said they can hear it coming through the walls. And they can hear it when I get in my car and I pull up. And I'm in there. And so, you know what? Maybe I play it too much, but maybe I love it.
Love it.
I don't think I've loved this song as this much that came out in years. And
He's the greatest.
I love Eminem.
He's the greatest.
And I love this song.
He's the greatest.
And
man.
so Houdini. And she gets so mad because I'll go up to her and say, hey, did you hear Eminem has a new song?
It just dropped.
I know. You play it all the... Listen. I'm about to reach in my bag, bruh. Hey.
Oh.
Just like that, and I'm back, bruh. That's enough. I'm sorry. Susan likes it.
It's a good song.
It's a banger.
It's great.
I love that song. So,
Abracadabra.
people are getting so mad right now. So what?
No, they're not.
And the theme of the song is, what if Slim Shady from back then was here now, and how would he react? Like the old Eminem with all the shit going on, right? And how would he rap about it? And if you watch, have you seen the video yet?
I still haven't watched
the
the
fucking video. So good. There's like a portal that's opened up. It's very comic bookish. You'd like this. And he and the old Slim Shady with the blonde hair comes through the portal into 2024 to battle the new Eminem. And like Dr. Dre's caught in the middle, and he picks it's. Dude, and there's great cameos of people you love. Am I going too fangirlish over this?
No,
I don't care.
No, I need to watch
care.
it. I've had a couple things on my plate in the last week or two.
Yeah, so have I. Called food. All right, so tell us about this new podcast that is out now. You can, wherever you listen to podcasts, is YouTube. What's the YouTube?
Jake Goody on YouTube.
Who thought of that?
This really cool guy named Jake Gutierrez.
Right.
Jake Goody on
Spotify, Apple, AOL, and then we got a MySpace for it. And our first friend is Tom.
I just created a LinkedIn page.
He's going to help us out with it. And so ICQ is all of it.
ICQ.
So what is the name of the podcast?
AOL. The podcast name is Just Jake. The Just Jake podcast.
It's just Jake.
Just Jake. It's just me.
Because like they well, who else is on it? It's just Jake.
Just Jake.
But you have guests.
I do. Just Jake.
And the first episode was very lengthy and very
it was.
powerful.
It was over 2 hours, but it was very therapeutic. I sat down with my older brother Dusty and my younger brother Derek, and we kind of went through the genesis of, I thought first episode we should maybe just tell an origin story.
Who was a better guest? Don't lie.
I think it was more impactful for my older brother.
Who was a better podcast voice?
I think Derek's more comfortable on the mic, but I think
I want Dusty on the show now.
I think Dusty. I think we hashed out a lot of things in terms of, look, you've been through a traumatic event, losing your mother. I went through losing my mother and my father in about a 3.5 year period with both of those men, and to have a different viewpoint, 3 different viewpoints of 2 of the same situations. It was, like I said, therapeutic is the best way I could describe it. But
was it easier to talk about stuff on the microphone on the podcast than it is like in real life at all? Because sometimes, like when I've had my dad on the podcast, oddly enough, it was easier to talk about some things on the podcast on the microphone than it is like when I'm at his house or on the phone. I don't know why.
I would say probably yes, just because I think they opened up a little bit more.
And they kind of knew what was coming.
Yeah, they had an idea because I gave them I typed out a kind of an outline of kind of the direction that I wanted it to go.
And they know other people are listening.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. But also it's like because I don't think they knew, like I didn't even know. And I straight up told them, like, how cool is it that you did a podcast? You've done several podcasts with your dad. And I told them both, I said, hey, look, you're only sitting here because mom and dad are gone, because they would have been my first guests on my podcast.
Right.
Like to sit down and say, hey, mom and dad, like, can you believe I'm 1, still alive, but 2, have my own podcast, because when I got the internship, my parents with you and Jason Whitlock on his show, when I got that internship, man, my parents were, I was living at home and working for my dad, and I think they were like, is this kid ever going to get a real job? Because my mom, thankfully my mom told all three of us, my dad took over his father's business, Arts Mexican Products. He took over that business, and my mom told all three of us from the time we were little. She said, don't any of you plan on taking over this business because we're not going to let you. You all three need to go figure out what you want to do and go do that because you're not going to take over this business.
Yeah, my mom told me the same thing because my dad's business was illegal. So different reasons, because you know what, but you're not taking over his business.
Same lesson.
Well, it's quite lucrative.
Right, but same lesson.
How about for just a couple of years? No.
So, with that said, they would have been my first two guests. They're not here, so the closest thing I have to my parents are my two brothers. So, I do find that they opened up a little bit more, but also it was, because we sat here and was like, I can't believe how long it's been. My father passed away in 2011. My mom passed away in 2007.
Oh, fuck, the years, my mom passed away right before yours did in 2006.
Right.
And I sit and think about it, there's no fucking way it's been that long.
Right. And so,
but it has.
Yeah. And so it's like we're sitting down having this conversation, and it's like we've never talked about this shit before. Like we've never had these conversations.
No.
And it's been, I can't even do the math. It's been 13 years since my father passed, and my mom was 07 on New Year's Eve. And so, 16, 17 years. And we've never talked about this stuff. And it's just because, one, it's so fucking hard. But two, it's like, when do you have time to sit down and spend 2 hours talking about a traumatic events, plural? And then
when do you want to?
Right. You don't really. But that's, I guess, a lesson that, my brother, Dusty, I saw relief. I saw relief in his face.
It's probably a burden.
Yeah. We talked about that. Just kind of like guilt that we carry for things that we shouldn't be carrying. Right. And like me giving an explanation to him, like, he's like, well, I've never thought about it like that, And like I said, go check out the podcast. It's like over 2 hours. And it I think is beneficial. Look, everybody suffers trauma in some form or fashion because we get into childhood trauma, what it was like growing up, having parents divorce at a young age when it was, in 1986 or 87 when it happened, like it was kind of uncommon. I went through a story is like, I was in a class of 25 people, and it was just me and one other gal.
Isn't that crazy? Now it's so common.
Right. Now it's like they sent us to a counselor together, me and this gal that I went to grade school and high school with, but we were in second grade, and we were the only two kids in our class that had parents divorced. So it was like, oh, their parents are divorced.
Oh, you almost feel like now, like I look at some of my daughter's friends, like
it's over 50% now.
Yeah, like it's common. I'm not going to put a number at it, but you think,
it is. Statistically speaking, it's now over 50% of marriages end up in a divorce, like 52%. And for whatever reason, I don't know. I certainly am not intelligent enough, but there used to be a stigma against it, right, wrong, or indifferent. That's just the way things used to be.
I think people thought that they had to stay together, and a lot of you hear that. Well, we got to stay together for the kids,
right?
When in reality, you know what? It's better off split up for the fucking kids, and don't put them through the hell of fighting every day and arguing and all that.
Don't let your problems spill over on top of them.
And guess what? Sometimes people grow apart. Sometimes there's really good excuses for getting a divorce. Sometimes it's all there's no right or wrong.
Absolutely,
you know what I mean. Nobody should be. You got to do what's best for you. You got to do what's best for your family. And you can't force something that's not there.
And there's no two situations that are ever the same. So that's why there's no textbooks, that say, hey, this is, example A, you should do this. Example, every two people in the relationship is absolutely independently different than everybody else's. But we had a unique story where, when I was 7 years old, my parents got divorced, and then when 5 years later, when I was 11 or 12, they got remarried to each other, and so. That was like right. So that and so going through that, my two, most kids, I think, and most kids when their parents get divorced, they could only pray that their parents would get back together. And I think that's how my two brothers were. And then when it happened, they were elated. And I was like, fuck this shit. I was like, it took me 5 years to get comfortable with the situation I'm in. And now, and plus, like I said, check out the podcast. I go into more stories about like his, I've said it before, you can identify. I was a complete mama's boy. And, I saw my dad break my mom's heart when I was 6 years old.
Right.
And I didn't forgive him until I was well into my 20s. And, we had conversations, And so it's like the fortunate thing is that I did mend that fence with my dad. And I'm so thankful today that happened because I did resent him and to his face, especially in my late teenage years. I would straight up say, I fucking hate you, man. Like, I wish you never came back. And that's some, like, in my heart, I don't think I ever believed it, but I was such an angry kid. And I think like part of that anger and uncontrollable rage is what I would call it. It stems back to, some of my alcoholism, because I am not that, like, that's still in me, but I don't live in that space. And I used to live in that space.
And I think Bob was kind of a man of few words.
Very much so.
Right. And like, I remember, like, I had a number of good conversations with your mom, especially, like, after my mom passed away. And so like when you talk about your mom, I can recall some things that we talked about. I can recall at my mom's funeral, her serving food afterwards and just in talking to me, and I like first meeting her. But there's not a lot of like conversations or things that your dad said that I can remember. I can remember seeing him and thinking, is he mad? Is he mad? Because
yeah,
like,
he was
right. Because like kind of like people look at me or look at my dad like he looks mad.
No,
and he wasn't. But the one thing that I always remember about your dad is at your mom's wake, and I think I got this right, and that night KU was getting ready to play in the Orange Bowl.
Yes.
And we got up there, I can't remember who was with me. Swartz, maybe.
Yeah.
And so we got up there, and I don't really remember what your brother said, and I don't really remember what you said, but I shook your dad's hand, and he grabbed me and he brought me in for a hug, and he said, he goes, you're a good friend to Jake. And I remember that meant so much to me because he didn't really say a lot to me. And I always thought, for some reason or whatever, I go, he must not like me on the radio because I feel like he's mad.
Oh, he loved you.
But you know what I mean? But just it's like when I always talk about how my grandfather would hardly ever cuss, and when he did cuss, we're like, oh boy, he's mad. Him saying though, I'll never forget that.
Thank you for sharing.
And that was like,
wow.
I remember walking. I go, oh, that made me feel. Not that I needed to feel good about this. That was like, here he is, and he's there. It meant a lot. Yeah, I feel like, and he wanted to say something, and he didn't know what to say, and he said that, and that said everything. That makes any sense.
He was the youngest of three, and he was not an emotional person.
And I also thought about some of the things we'd done together. I'm like, am I a good friend? And I said, you know what? I'm not going to question this. Right, I'm going to take the win and I'm out.
It's his perspective. It's got to be right.
Kind of not, but Bob, thank you.
His perspective. It can't be wrong. But and we like I'm going to probably keep saying this, but like we went into this on the podcast how different my relationship was with my dad compared to my two brothers.
Oh yeah.
Right? And it's because like I think how mean I was to him, like especially growing up, and then when I moved back home, when I was drinking too much and partying too much, and I couldn't afford my own rent, and then my mom got sick, and it was just a really good excuse to say I'm moving back home to help my dad take care of my mom, which was absolutely the truth. But there were some other things too that made it easier to move home. But that time, my dad and I and my mom, just the three of us, I would have been 20. Basically, I just started working here. I was 24. I was 23 when I got the internship. 22, August of 02. I was 22, and I lived on my own. And then I lived with a couple of roommates, and then my mom got sick in the winter of 03. And by the springtime of 03, I moved back. So I moved back home with my dad. So I was 23, turning 24, And then my mom passed away when I was 27. So the three and a half years that it was just me, my mom, and my dad. And it was really just me and my dad always having to make sure, hey, my mom was like, it was like my mom brought us together, right? And probably in a way that she had no idea that she was doing. And because him and I we both loved her so much.
Right.
And we just like her care and her health and making sure she was comfortable and taken care of was just so much more important than any of the bullshit.
You put all that shit aside and put everything in perspective.
And what through that, what happened is, me and my dad became best friends to the point in time where when my dad's going through his cancer, like he didn't trust nobody. Like he didn't trust doctors. He didn't trust other family members, not even really my brothers. It was like, hey, what are we going to do? Like, what are we going to do? Because I was living with him at the time. And he's like, what do you think? Like, what are we going to do? What should I do? And his like even when I would, like his last 5 weeks, I think it was, when he went to the hospital and he never came back out for 5 weeks, he was in the hospital. It's like, I was in that fucking hospital every day and I didn't want to be. But if I wasn't there, like I would get a phone call from whoever was there with him being like, hey, your dad wants to know when you're coming down. And it'd be like, tell him I'm leaving in an hour, And so like that, like built our relationship to the point where it's like this man I grew up loathing because he hurt my mom had become my best friend.
There's like so many parallels between me and you and what you're saying, and you talking about that unlocked a memory that I've never really talked about. And it's not really a bad memory, it's just a memory, right?
Sure.
I'm living in Northeast, in a third floor of an apartment building on St. John Avenue. Yes. My real name's St. John. My grade school was St. John, and I lived on St. John. All right? Fucking crazy. Whatever. Can't make that shit up.
It's awesome.
And so my mom still lives in, my childhood house. I live in this apartment with Susan, her oldest son, my stepson Chris, and Richie. And we're trying to get out of Northeast. I don't have the money yet. And I'm trying to get my mom to sell the house, and we got to get out of Northeast at that time. Northeast is making a comeback.
Sure is.
But at that point, the comeback had not started yet, and it was fucking terrible. And I also did not need to live across the street from the Concourse Tavern. That was a bad deal. That was run by Big Tom, and that's just that was a big fucking mess, okay?
And pretty awesome.
Right.
Now.
It was pretty awesome. And so my dad had got out of prison. And my mom never went to see him in prison just because they had split up and got a divorce, and to be honest, she fucking hated him.
Sure.
And her heart was broken. And we'd find out he had another family. All these terrible things, right?
Lots of resentment there.
Right. And I was fucking mad because my mom was really sick for a long time. And I hate saying I had to take care of her. I chose to take care of her.
Sure.
But I would always think to myself, man, her husband should fucking be here taking care of her. This shouldn't be all put on me, but it's going to be, and I'm going to take it. And that's why when I met Susan, God love her, I said, you know what? And she was always concerned, like, she would ask me, like, how do you feel about having a ready-made family? Because she had a little boy, Chris, who I love like my own.
Sure.
When we met, and I would tell her, I don't fucking care if you have 5 kids. I love you.
Yeah, man. That's awesome.
You had me at hello, Susan. So you had me at Woody's when we danced, and I saw the way you moved. She's going to get so mad that I said that. You can shake it, baby. You still can. Anyway, and so I said I don't care. I said, well, I go, how do you feel that my mom's a package deal that she get to live with us because I take care of her? All good. And it wasn't always all good.
Sure.
It's tough for her. It was because my mom was, I'm sure there was some jealousy there. Then all of a sudden, my mom's not my entire focal point. And then, but then when I had Richie, then she was like,
diverted it.
Fuck you, Steven. I love him more than I ever loved you.
Yeah,
That's my grandson, Richie. And so there was a time when my dad says, I'd kind of like to see your mom. I said, oh, no. He hadn't in 10 years, hadn't
Right.
seen, right?
Wow.
I go, no, nope. And then I went to my mom saying it. I'm like, can you believe my dad said he wouldn't mind seeing you? And she goes, okay. I'm like, well, I go, no. I said, I'm not letting this happen. She goes, that's not your choice. I said, I'm not letting it happen because I'm not doing this because you're going to see him and you're going to fall in love. And she goes, I never fell out of love. I will always love your dad no matter what. I will always be, that's why I'll never let another man touch me. And I hate all men except you and my grandson, you know, and but I will always love your dad and I want to see him. So we set up a lunch or something and I think it's still there. There's a Chinese restaurant on Independence Avenue called Steam Bowl.
Nice.
Fuck you. Nice. So we go to Steam Bowl. And we sat down, and it was me and Susan, I think Chris, and baby Richie, and my dad and my mom, and it was absolutely one of the worst fucking lunches I've ever had in my fucking life.
Wow.
They were fine. I was so, it was like a fucking dagger was up my ass. I was so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I was like,
wow.
I want this to be over. This is fucking awful because I know all the thing and how it was fucking terrible. And everyone's just nice and everything else. And then at some point, I think she kind of said something combative. I go, oh boy, here we go. But it was all right. We got through it. And then I remember going home. Like I said, we lived on the 3rd floor. All these fucking stairs outside of our apartment building. And Susan said, so how do you think that went? I said, I don't know. Let me throw myself down the fucking stairs right now and you come and ask me how I think that went. All right, and I'll probably give you the same answer. And so, and I figured. Then I realized it was me.
Right.
It wasn't, they were adults,
right,
and getting through it, and I had all this resentment and anger that I had not dealt with, and I was so mad at my dad, and then I was kind of mad at my mom, and I was mad at fucking everyone, and I just I had all this resentment towards my dad. Like there would be times when he was in jail, like. I'm not going to fucking see him. Then I'm like, oh, I got to go see my dad. I love my dad.
Right.
And then, and my dad, like I said, he doesn't call them stepkids, but like his wife, Vicky, he has children and he considers them his own. And I always saw the way he treated them. In my perspective, he treated them way better than me. And I would always tell my mom before she passed, like, how come he won't treat me like that? Why does he not like me? And I know my dad listens to the podcast. I think we talked about this, but I went through this long stretch where I thought my dad just doesn't like me. He left home, when, and they split when I was like 12 or 13, awkward with braces and acne. And
that's a hard time, man.
Probably fucking, in the bathroom for 45 minutes. God damn it. I got to go. Oh, man, in a minute, Dad. What are you doing in there, you son of a bitch? I look back, I probably would not have liked me either. But I just had this stigma that he just does. I'm the reason why, and that's why I figured out why I was so uncomfortable, because I had convinced myself I was the reason why they broke up. And it wasn't.
Right.
It was because two people couldn't get along. She wanted him to be someone he wasn't. He wanted her to be someone she wasn't. But I wore that. I probably fucking wore that until after my mom passed away. And I took that, and I think I thought I was taking that away from my mom. I said, I'm the reason why he left. I'm the reason why they didn't work things out. I'm the reason. And it fucking drove me crazy.
Then it just became your
Right.
truth. That was
exactly.
that was just the truth to you.
And so then over time, my dad and I, because, when I was a little before all this stuff happened, me and my dad were fucking tight.
Right.
I love my dad. And now my dad's one of my best friends, and it's developed into that. And now I know my dad loves me, and he always loved me. He just didn't know how to show it for a long time.
Right.
He was like Bob. He had no idea how to express it, and I didn't realize how hard of an upbringing he had.
That's the exact.
And all the hell he went through.
Yeah.
He didn't know how to express his love.
And no one taught him. He never saw it.
Right.
And that's how my dad was too.
And then when I had kids, the way he treats my kids is the way I always wanted him to treat me. And I said, you know what?
That's beautiful, man.
That's what I want. And I got what I wanted, but it's for them.
Right.
And I'd rather have it for them.
More important,
You know,
right?
because my mom she babied the hell, and my grandparents, they spoiled me and babied me, but I always wanted that for my dad. And my dad just wasn't going to do it. And it wasn't because of me. That's how he was wired.
Not capable.
Even now.
I'm sure he might have wanted to.
Right.
He just didn't have the ability to do that.
I go in to hug him and kiss him, and he's like, almost like I'm a walking fart that he's trying not to smell. You know, come here, give me a hug. He's like, you know,
Yeah.
and you're going to. And let me tell you, I love my dad with all my heart, and I know that he loves me. And any broken fences have been mended, and we have a fantastic relationship. And he's a great grandfather and a great father. But it was a long and winding path to get there, and it wasn't all his fault. A lot of it was my fault. Yeah. And guess what? A lot of it was my mom's fault. And so it wasn't all his fault, but it was convenient for me to just blame him.
Sure.
Blame the bad guy in jail. It was all his fault, and it wasn't. And I needed to fucking grow up and mature and realize, you know what? Not everything. What a selfish thing that it's not all about me. And I always thought everything's about me. Not everything's about me, except my show, New Day with SSJ, which I encourage you to tune into. That's all about me.
6 to 10
Nate's
a.m.
gone. But the point is, it's not all about me. And that was fucking selfish and conceited to think that.
But also that's it took probably you having your own kids to develop that.
Right.
Like you couldn't have developed that without the experiences that you had in your life.
And all I ever wanted was my dad to be there because I missed him. I wanted him to be there. And there's some times when he told me he's gonna pick me up on Saturday at 2:00. I'd be sitting on the stairs. He didn't show up.
Right.
And my mom would be like, "You motherfucker!
Right.
That son of a bitch!" You know. And I'm probably thinking back, like my dad probably didn't want to come around that because he knew he'd go pick me up, and my mom was gonna run out there and yell at him for something else or whatever. Right.
Right.
And that's why I make a bunch of mistakes as a dad, but guess what? I'm gonna be there, and I'm there when they don't want me to be there, which is a lot. You know. You have to go to every game. Yes, I do.
Yeah.
You have to go to everything that we do. Yes, I do.
Right. Because the reality is that down the road, they're going to be so thankful that you were.
We'll see.
They will. I mean, they will. I mean, are
we recording this?
Forever, man.
Tell people again the podcast.
The podcast is the Just Jake podcast. You can find it on all your streaming platforms. You can go to my YouTube page. It'll be up there with the video.
And so, like, for we've talked about this first episode. What if someone asks you, so what's Just Jake? What's the podcast going to be like? When somebody asks me what this is about, I have no fucking idea. Because from episode to episode, I'm like, what was that about? How would you explain the podcast, and why do you think it's going to be something that people will want to listen to?
Well, it's relatable. I think it's not going to have any one permanent focus. There might be a little sports talk on there. Probably the only thing you won't hear is a whole lot of politics on that show, but you might hear some spirituality on it. I think the focus I want to drive that.
Can we hear about who you're going to vote for at least?
Nope.
Okay.
Because I'm not a U.S. citizen,
All
so
right,
I don't have a vote. So I'm a private American national. We'll probably talk about that on the podcast.
Shit.
Yeah. But overall, I like to frame it just as overall wellness, right? Overall wellness, whether it be in the physical realm, in the mental realm, or in the spiritual realm, right? I look at myself as a 3-part entity: a mind, a body, and a soul. And I think at different parts in time in my life, it's been out of balance. And I think everybody wrestles with that. I mean, you can look at people who are 100% like physical specimens, who have their physical health all dialed up, and they are physically 100% healthy, but they're spiritually or mentally sick, right? And so there's a balance that I try to find, and you can only find that balance by being out of balance. And so what I want to provide are in those 3 arenas, different people who I've found benefits from that add to those parts of my balancing of those 3 entities, of those 3 parts of me, right? So whether it be, someone who teaches the Wim Hof method, which is breathing and cold work. I have a lady lined up named Ashley Orr, who is a certified Wim Hof specialist who lives up in Canada, who I've connected with. She does all kinds of seminars where does breath work and cold work.
Susan's gonna be listening to all this stuff.
Yeah, I mean it's great. There's
She's interested in this.
there's so many different avenues. I have a gentleman who wrote a book about his alcoholism. I'm going to bring it. So it's going to be, obviously, if you're tuning in, you probably know who I am. You probably know my story. And if you don't, well, I am a recovered alcoholic who reversed type 2 diabetes. And I'm orphaned. I have all these things.
What a treatment for this, by the way.
Right.
What a fucking description of this.
Well, I mean, all these things I've had to walk through, and they've created the person that I am today. And so I went through all this contrast, I call it, and a lot of those things. A lot of people go through those things. A lot of people go through. Especially in the day and age that we're living in, mental health is a real problem.
And you want to help people.
Yeah. And so, I want to have the platform to help people with their mental health, their physical health, their spiritual health, their overall well-being. And, I think it's a tribute, to my parents, right? Because I look at myself, like my mom died when she was 55 and my dad died when he was 59. And I call myself, I'm their untapped potential, right? They died with so much potential in their lives. They were so young and they had so much going for them. And they were such good people who cared about others first and showed me that. Whether I was able to display it when they were here or not, no, not all the time. But they instilled these principles in me. And so what I say is, I'm Bob and Debbie's untapped potential. And so this is me providing that potential. I want to help others because I know that's what they taught me to do.
It just fucking resonates with me, and that's going to resonate with so many people because I haven't been able to phrase it as eloquently as that, but like there'll be times when I'm at my daughter's basketball game or especially Richie's one of his performances because my mom was one that got him started in piano lessons and would not let him stop, and she told me don't ever let him stop.
She knew
because he has musical talent, right?
She knew.
And sometimes I'll be at one of his performances. I think, man, it's fucking bullshit that my mom's not here. It's fucking. And she was 67, but she had so much left to give, Or when Phil's on the dean's list, like God, because the way I look at it. And I played guitar for 2 years, and I quit. And she got so fucking mad. She almost pulled a honky tonk man, and hit me over there. With I bought this fucking guitar, and when my dad bought this guitar, and you're gonna quit the lessons, And
Jeff Jarrett,
and like, so to relate it to what you said, my sons and my daughters are my untapped potential. Richie is the musician and entertainer that she thought I could be. Mr. fucking bad grades over here, 30 on the ACT and bullshit 1.9 GPA.
There you go.
Phil gets the grades that she thought I could get. Selena and Julia are the athletes that she thought I could be because they're academically eligible. I was a pretty good wrestler, but they kept kicking me off the team because my grades were terrible.
Study all to you,
right? And so, and I look at that, and I'm like, they're fulfilling all the things that she thought I could be, in different ways. And why the fuck isn't she here to see it? I know you say that she's watching, and I believe that, but
it doesn't.
I want her to fucking be. I want her to see my dad. Or I wanted to see my son perform, and I wanted to see me be a dad. But thankfully she met the boys, and selfishly, man, I get so mad when she never got a chance to meet the girls.
Yeah.
And I always tell people one girl is named after her, one looks just like her, so they both remind me of her. And that's why I'm so grateful when my dad comes out to Richie's performances, and my dad comes out to the girls' games, and he's such a good grandpa, and they love him so much, and he loves them because that fulfills a part of my heart that is so that's empty because of my mom not being there. And even like my dad's wife Vicky does such a great job of being there for them and connecting with my daughters and connecting with the boys. And I, because that's a void I'll always have. My
Yeah.
mom not there, even though I believe that she's watching. And so I need to listen to your podcast. So it'll help me.
Yeah, I mean, and
know?
the reality is that'll never not suck. That'll never not suck.
It's just that's how much we loved our parents,
Yeah.
man, and we're not alone.
But they're an extension of you, and you're an extension of your mom. So I mean, that's like I say, she does see it now. It's not the same. I'm not going to pretend.
Right.
I'm not going to pretend like, hey, you should feel like it should be okay.
Yeah,
for
and
you.
sometimes I feel like I just say that just to make myself feel better. I believe it, but it's also like something that pacifies me when I get upset.
But I mean, it is true, but it's not the same. It's not the same as you watching your mom give her grandson a hug after a performance. Like there's nothing that can fix that or replace that. But you do know the feeling that would give you. That feeling that you thinking about that feeling is real, right? That feeling that you thinking about that moment, that experience, that feeling is real. Just as if you were to experience it here, right? That thought is real, and it doesn't discount it any. Like I said, it doesn't make it easier. It doesn't make it, okay, because it sucks. It sucks. That there's no other way to put that. Your mom not being able to witness your children grow up and her grandchildren grow up, flat out sucks.
And something else I need, because again, I need to remember, not always about me. I'm such a, I'm so egotistical. When I met Susan, she lived with her grandmother, and her grandmother pretty much raised her. Her grandmother was fucking awesome. And, man, right away after I met her, her grandmother was diagnosed with brain cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And she went quick, and it was fucking terrible. But I remember like these moments, like I remember with Bob. I remember a moment when we were having a birthday party for Chris at the Godfather's Pizza on Independence Avenue.
Godfather's.
And Godfather's had a fucking buffet. And
great
let me taste it,
buffet.
it was delicious.
Great buffet.
And I remember I was like, Susan was doing something. I think somebody that wasn't even with us spilled something or whatever else, and she runs over there like she's cleaning up everything, doing all the stuff.
Of course.
And her grandma leaned over to me and said, "She's got a good heart." Like almost, and I'm reading this shit way too much, but almost like she kind of knew that we were together and we were going to be together, and she was kind of telling me, "You got a good one here, buddy."
Right.
Like she's got a good heart, because I think that's one of the most beautiful things that anyone could say about somebody. They've got a good heart, and I feel like almost she was like telling me like, "Don't fuck this up."
Right.
Dummy.
Yeah.
She's got a good heart.
Respect that. Don't break it.
Don't break it.
Right.
Or I'll break you.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what
I will haunt you.
Right. But I always took that like, that's a beautiful thing for her to say about Susan. And I know that Susan feels that way too. Like her grandma should be here to see this stuff. And Julia's middle name is Orlena. That was her grandmother's name.
It's beautiful.
And so it's tribute, her
to her
that's
two
what we wanted.
grandmas.
That's right. So, man, this is look at you. Just your podcast is bringing all these things out of me. But also, this is something like you'll help people maybe address those feelings and be able to examine these things. And listening to you want to help people, and there's a number of different ways that you could do that, and this podcast is one of them.
Look, there's so much bullshit that we focus on. Like in life, there's just so much bullshit.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the sales department. There's so much bullshit
around here, these people. But there's things they're so trivial, right? And we get so worked up and we put so much emotion in it, and they cause so much stress and so much anxiety. And my dad used to say it all the time, it just doesn't matter.
Bill Murray,
It just
Meatballs.
doesn't matter.
Hey, my dad took me to see Meatballs.
Yeah, it just doesn't matter. And there's
You're like Rudy running that race.
Rudy the Rabbit.
You're gonna fucking win.
Rudy the Rabbit.
Right.
No, but there are things in life that do matter, right? And that, like, if we just took like all the energy we put into the bullshit, and I'm not saying put all of it into the stuff that matters, but sifting through and really. And what it comes down to is time, right? We don't have enough time, right? But if we can allocate our thoughts to the important stuff, right? because everything starts with a thought. And so where's our focus go? Like what we resist persists. And so all these things that we push against in our lives, they just get bigger the more we push against them.
And sometimes you need things to help you crystallize that perspective, right? We were together at the ALS golf tournament, the Joe
Absolutely.
McGovey ALS Golf Classic on Monday. And everyone knows my story about my Uncle Richie battling ALS and then passing away at 39, and we're talking about untapped potential.
Yeah.
And and I feel like I go into that thing and I'm might be complaining about something at work, or something didn't go right at home, or I'm mad because I don't feel good, whatever. I'm tired, and then I go to this tournament and we have an honoree that's literally battling for their life, battling ALS, and their family's there to support them, and their friends are there, and so many times we've had the honoree there, and then the next year they're gone, and it's always a reset for me when I go to that golf tournament and I introduce the honoree and I hear their story, and I will leave, and driving home, 'cause it's about 45 minutes from Lionsgate to where I go home, and it's always the same thing every year driving. I'm like, you dumb motherfucker. You were mad about this, or you were sad about that, and you have you're healthy, you're happy, you have a good job, you have a great family, you have beautiful friends. Shut the fuck up and live your life.
You need to be nicer to my friend, Steven.
Yeah, that's right.
You need to be nicer to my best friend, Steven.
Do you know what I mean?
Because you're not a dumb motherfucker. But
No,
yes,
but like
I completely know. Yes.
What am I complaining about?
But also, that's why you continue to do it. That's why you keep doing it, because of that feeling. Because look, it's hard to do that when it's sitting in front of you. When you see it on the calendar, it's a no-brainer. You're going to do it. But then the day before, the day you're there, that's just natural human nature.
Oh, yeah, it's hard.
Because it's hard work.
It reminds me of my uncle, though. It's hard.
Right. It's hard work. It's hard work because it is work. It is mentally exhausting, physically draining after you've been up since 4:30 in the morning. It's hard work, but there's that what you're talking about. That's the reward. That it fills your cup up.
It means something to me.
Yeah, that's why you keep doing it. That's how life is, man. Anything it's hard. You don't want to do it, and that's your human nature. We're humans. We're trying to find the easiest possible way to do things. The path of least resistance. That's what we want, and that's not where any of the good stuff is. That's not where the good stuff is. The good stuff is when you put hard work and put effort into it and go through it. The reward is what that feeling that you're talking about. And it's like, why, you say stupid motherfucker, but that's human nature, because you're like, why was I not dreading it, but why was I resisting it? Why was I even having any negative thoughts? And the reason you're having negative thoughts is that's human nature. That's what we do. And where I run into problems is when I start giving into those thoughts. Right. When I start saying, okay, well, and I start giving myself the exit, the chicken exit, and giving my making up excuses that aren't good enough. But they're excuses because I'm afraid of that hard stuff. Even though that's why it's like I try to create an environment for myself where it's like I just what's right. You know what's right in your heart, so just do that. Do what's right in your heart. And it's been a long process because I used to tell myself a lot of lies. I'm a really good liar, and I can lie to myself better than anybody else. So it's like I can tell myself, well, this is why I shouldn't do this. Or and it's all these bullshit justifications where it's like, in your heart what's right, just do it. And it takes practice. It's a part of your brain that you literally have to exercise. Like it grows bigger the more you do things. Like that's like what the cold tub helps me do, right? Because I never want to get in that cold tub, but knowing that and going through that resistance on a daily basis and getting in there, there's a part in the middle of your brain that grows. And when you stop doing that stuff, it gets smaller and it gets easier to not do the right things.
I try to look at it as that voice that's telling me all the negative shit, and that voice it's almost like the devil on your shoulder, that I think, you know what, that's not me.
Mm-mm.
That's the bad thoughts. That's you know what? It is the devil. That's that voice wants me to fail, and it's not me. It's a voice almost disguising themselves as my thoughts that's trying to tear myself down. And I said, you know what? Fuck that. That's not me.
Yeah, it's the darkness.
Yeah, I'm gonna not listen to that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna listen to the good things, and I've tried to compartmentalize that and do that. It's not always easy, but I'm getting better at it. You know,
The dark versus the light, man. It's like the light is the right, and the dark is the wrong. And it's like, but the thing is, like, we're not always gonna be perfect. Like, it's impossible to be perfect. So it's like you just learn from the times where you listen to that voice, because it happens, and so you learn from it. You don't beat yourself up, and you just make sure the space in between making those decisions gets farther and farther apart.
hey, how long's the world been in existence? There's only been one perfect person. That was Kurt Hennig, Mr. Perfect, the Perfect Plex. I mean, he's fucking incredible, right? You know,
Spit the gum out.
one of
and
the
hit
greatest in-ring workers ever.
Oh, I love Kurt Hennig.
So tell people again about this. It's available now. It's out now.
Out now. Go check it out. The Just Jake podcast.
You want people to listen to it or watch it? What would you prefer?
I mean, however you consume your podcasts. I mean, YouTube. I consume a lot of stuff on YouTube because I like to watch stuff. And even
you do.
I'm a voyeur, Steven. I like to watch.
Right.
But even like I catch myself just listening to it on YouTube and just putting it in my pocket sometimes. I'm mowing the lawn or something. That's just how I can. However is best for you to consume your podcast. There is video available, and it'll be on YouTube. And then if you don't care for the video and don't want to look at my dumb face, then Apple Podcasts, Spotify, however you consume your podcasts, and eventually, hopefully, I'll get it working where it's on my website as well. So samuraiofsoul.com. There'll be a Just Jake podcast link.
You know I'm gonna ask her.
Yeah.
Is that where you can buy this fucking book that I promoted a year and a half ago on this podcast? That takes away from my podcast, and now people don't believe what I say.
It makes it great.
Is this is where you? Is that what makes it great?
No, it's like, should I ever finish this book? I'm just kidding.
This journey,
Yes,
has been on. It began on this podcast.
Let me tell you, writing a book's hard, man.
Oh, really? Well, you got any more nuggets like that on Just Jake? We're gonna find out.
Writing a book is hard.
But you're gonna get there.
Yes, I will.
I'll tell you something. This book
I will.
is the most
It's going to be
anticipated
it's going to be
book
so celebrated.
since the Bible. People are going to be so excited about this. Holy shit! They're going to use this to baptize kids in the future. I mean, look, I believe, or I wouldn't bring it up. I believe there's going to be a book.
Yes.
But man, are you milking this thing?
Oh man,
You're milking this thing. There's no more milk from this teat.
run this
The
tea dry.
teat is dry. Release the book. Release the Kraken. Promote it again. One more time.
The Just Jake podcast. Just search it on YouTube or wherever you find your podcast. Or Jake Goody is my YouTube channel. So go like and subscribe, and you'll get your updates and all that fun stuff. But I'm really excited about this. All joking aside, I think it's part of the reason why I decided to come back, honestly, is that, this podcast was part of that negotiation in terms of doing this. And
I knew it wasn't because of me. You fucking, it was because of the podcast. Gosh.
So, I mean, I and it was because of you,
There
of course.
we go.
And that,
I love you like a brother from another mother, man.
Absolutely, man.
And it's like this, we have an unspoken bond from tragedy, but also from love. And it's more from love.
Yeah. And it's,
that.
it's, look, there's no such thing as coincidence in my life, and it's like not a coincidence that I emailed you like over 30 times in a month, and you finally were like, dude, just leave me alone. Come on in here. And you brought me under your wing and brought me into this building and made me an intern, and then the rest is sorry, Kansas City. The rest is Stephen St. John's fault in history.
At least I'm consistent. I didn't fucking answer emails back then, and I don't answer emails now. I can tell you that. So is that it?
I think that's good, man. I think that's
good.
Great.
Just Jake.
The Just Jake podcast.
Right.
Go check it out. I'm really excited for this opportunity.
So am I. I'm gonna be your biggest viewer and fan.
And you're gonna be one of my guests too.
I haven't agreed to. Hey, that ain't part of my contract.
No, it's not.
But I'll do it.
Yeah,
Oh, so if that's it,
That's it.
Just Jake podcast.
The Just Jake podcast.
It's available now.
Yeah, and
so literally, when you're done with this,
Yeah.
go there, cross over with us.
And go follow me on X, Just Jake podcast, and on Instagram, Just Jake podcast.
Oh, so now it's got its own Twitter account.
Yeah, on Twitter and.
Wow. Who helped you with Ben?
No, I did.
Sure would like to have a fucking hot mic with SSJ.
Just
fucking
Jake
handle.
podcast on X and on Instagram.
All right. And by the way, I love you, Dad. I love you, Susan. I love you, all my kids. I love you, Vicky. I love you, Mom. I love all my family. And so hopefully my immediate family, my wife and kids won't be too mad as I play myself off the podcast with, I don't know if you heard this, Julia. There's a new
Brand new.
Eminem song that I kind of like. It's called Houdini.
What do the kids say? It slaps.
It slaps. Is that what they say?
I don't know. I
It
heard
slaps.
I heard some kids say it.
So we're going to listen to this just for a minute, and I'll remind you that you can listen to Hot Mic with SSJ on Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube. Well, you're listening to it and watching it right now, so I don't need to fucking tell you. Spread the word, though. All right? So I can start getting paid by clicks, and I can get the people to advertise on this thing.
Like and subscribe.
Oh, there you go. Thanks. That's why he's my producer. I can't remember shit. Especially when when I don't get the show sheet when the show starts, and he has to bring it in the middle of the show to tell me he's on the show.
Just testing you.
So there we go. Until next time, the microphone is off.